Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Jakari Jackson. It's June 3rd, 2015, and here's a look at our top stories.
Tonight, a 36-year NSA veteran turned whistleblower breaks down the passage of the USA Freedom Act. Then, a family in Mississippi is facing possible jail time for cheering on their loved ones at a high school graduation. And a senator in Rhode Island wants to use RICO laws to prosecute global warming skeptics. All that plus much more up next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
A Rhode Island senator, Sheldon Whitehouse, just seriously suggested that people who are skeptical of global warming models and predictions should not only be censored, but prosecuted under the RICO Act. That's the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act of 1970. You know, going after organized crime. The government was having trouble getting convictions for organized crime because the mob could always hire the best lawyers. So they decided they'd take away their money first so they could get a conviction. But when you take away constitutional rights for the mob, you take them away for everyone. Within 16 years, Reagan signed civil asset forfeiture laws that allowed the police to confiscate property even without charging you with a crime. By 1994, RICO was being used against pro-life activists. So it's not a stretch that this government would use RICO against people who are skeptical of its agenda. For more information, go to INFOWARS.com. I'm David Knight.
That's right, David. In that article, he was referring to Senator use RICO laws to prosecute global warming skeptics. And basically, he breaks down how things like political lobbying, contributions to political candidates, and the use of media efforts is undermining climate science. And the thing about this is when we talk about the climate science, as we talk about quite often here, I'm not a scientist, but this doesn't really seem like science to me. Because as you guys recall, we talked about it at a great length earlier this year, 2014, the hottest year on record, except Chicago, Illinois, and Detroit, Michigan, and those are just two cities off the top of my head. So they say it's the hottest year on record, but it's also cold here, and it somehow makes sense, even though we said it was hot, it's supposed to be cold. And now they don't use either global warming or global cooling. It's an all-encompassing climate change. So to put it to you like this, let's say we're betting on a football game, and it's the Cowboys versus the Eagles, and I say the Cowboys are going to win unless the Eagles win, and then either way, I get the money. You say that doesn't make sense. That's the same thing they're giving you with climate change. They actually had just some backup. This is what it's going to be this year, fine. If it's extra hot that year, fine. But if it's extra cold that year, you can't say that you won when you say it's going to be hot. Do you understand kind of what I'm going here? And then they have their pundits go out, like they're talking about the pundits here. They have their pundits go on MSNBC, and they say, don't use global warming, don't use global cooling, use climate change. So regardless what the temperature is, you will be accurate. And it's not just there. As you guys recall, we did the report last year, 2014, U.S. college professor demands imprisonment for climate change deniers. So they're saying that if you have any type of skepticism at all, you need to be jailed and dealt with and possibly even re-educated. Now, to be very clear, when we talk about the climate, I definitely understand that climates change over time. My biggest argument, if you disagree with everything I've said thus far, let's think about this in just terms of money. People understand that. What is paying all these carbon taxes going to do to stop global warming? Seriously. Like if you're like me, you have a car, you have an apartment. If you have to pay out the wazoo for carbon taxes when you have these big companies, with these big plants and all this stuff, what's that really going to do? What's your contribution going to do to help anything? Nothing. All it is going to do is line the pockets of these politicians, these pundits, and these people who keep pushing this global or climate change agenda. So that's enough on that. Let's switch gears and talk about the climate here in the city of Austin, Texas, or more accurately, the climate of the internet at large, because we see that the man behind the Silk Road is now in prison, the 31-year-old operator of the Silk Road. This is Ross Ulbricht. He was sentenced this past weekend to life without parole. And the reason they busted him and came down so hard on him is because the site, the Silk Road, they said he allowed all this illicit activity to take place, and thus he needs to be dealt with very harshly. Now, his defense was saying, hey, I just set up a website. And they said, well, people were dealing drugs on your website. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. People were dealing drugs a long time before the internet came around. And you can do other things on Silk Road as well. I looked on there earlier today. You can look at books and magazines. You can get all kinds of stuff on there, just like you can get on Craigslist. People just chose to use it for the avenue of doing drugs as well as many other things. Same thing if you go to Craigslist. There's people who do prostitution on Craigslist. Do you shut down Craigslist? You have pedophiles looking for children on Facebook. Do you shut down Facebook? No. They have action teams. They have these cyber cops who sit around and pose as little girls so they can get these predators off the street. That's how you deal with these things. You don't just lock people up and throw away the key. So it's a very unfortunate situation. And hopefully, life without parole, that's a really tough sentence. And I'm not exactly sure how you can combat that. But just keep this in mind. If you put anything out there, if you start anything on the internet, if you start a whatever site, the new Amazon, and somebody does some illegal activity on there, they may come after you and try to put you in the slammer just like they did for this unfortunate gentleman. Now let's talk about somebody else going to the slammer. Let's say you go to a graduation ceremony. It's a great time. You have kids, maybe they're in a troubled neighborhood. And I don't know about the town where you live in, but all around the city of Austin, Texas, they have these billboards. X number of kids don't graduate, but 100% of kids need help getting through high school. So if you want to support these kids, now they're saying you can't do that in the state of Mississippi. And we have the article, Family Threatened with Jail for Cheering Graduating Relatives.
You did it, baby!
A week or two later, I was served with some papers.
Papers that threatened to throw them in jail. Superintendent Jay Foster found disturbing the peace charges against them, and officers issued warrants for their arrests with a $500 bond.
The fact that I might have to bond out of jail or pay court costs of a $500 fine for express my love is ridiculous, man. It's just ridiculous.
And if you thought that was the only example, oh, no, no, no. Now we have this Native American student sues to wear eagle feather at graduation.
Somebody called and said that I could wear it as an ornament in my hair. It's not an ornament. It's so much more than that. It's representing who I am and what all I've worked for. It made me really upset because it made me feel like I had to hide who I am.
This is a rite of passage.
It's honoring my ancestors and my elders and just basically everybody who I am, Native American.
So what type of example are we setting for our students? If you go and cheer for somebody, you could be arrested, or if you want to honor your heritage, then oh no, you can't participate. So these are the type of things that our children are being indoctrinated with, just to follow the orders blindly. Like even when I went to high school, they didn't want you to bring out beach balls and stuff like that. But if you had a little swag, a little flair, it wasn't that big of a deal. Now they're cracking down on you altogether. You can't cheer. You probably can't even smile or even enjoy yourself. You just have to go and suckle and beg to be let on stage or enjoy the time there in the festivities. So we'll switch gears entirely and talk about the banking system, the cashless society. And to be straight, I have no issue with people who use credit cards or Bitcoins and stuff like that. But you don't want a completely cashless society where every transaction you make is monitored. And Alex talked about this on the Alex Jones Show today, talking about cookies and doing things such as that. And he gave the example that if you're a company that buys a bunch of plane tickets, they just assume that you have all types of money, and they will actually bump up the price of your plane ticket. So that's for all the people who say, I have nothing to hide. No, if your cookies show that you purchased something, they'll just make you, or they'll give you the suggested price that they think that you can actually afford. But now we have this article by Paul Joseph Watson, economist, financial elites fear provoking bank runs. And this is Martin Armstrong. He warns that the financial elites are plotting to abolish cash, but are weary of warning the public because it could cause bank runs. Basically, when everybody wants to go get their money out at the same time. I believe it was that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, if you want to see what that looks like on film. So this is why you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, whether it's credit cards, whether it's Bitcoins, whether it's cash, whether it's gold, whatever. You want to diversify and have many different ways to have commerce that's not dependent on one particular thing. But, ultimately, people are going to do what they want to do anyway. And we'll end with a sign of the times before we go on to more special reports. San Francisco, which I went to, it's not my favorite city in California. I rather enjoy San Diego, but it's nice. It has the Golden Gate and a nice view and all that. It got pretty much destroyed in that movie, San Andreas with The Rock. I went and saw that this weekend. But basically the point I'm getting to with this, they say San Francisco's median rent hit a ridiculous $4,225. Now, you may be saying, hey, they got all those tech companies out there, those guys making the big money. But as it states in the article, it's saying that even those guys are getting to the point where they cannot afford this ridiculous rent. Here in the city of Austin, Texas, I don't even live in a great neighborhood, and my rent's going up and up and up. I'm like, the service isn't getting any better. Why do you keep charging me more money? But they have to do that because, the city and all these other things that are going on. So sign of the times, back in the day when you could, get a soda pop and a puppy dog and all that stuff for 99 cents. Now you can't do anything for 99 cents. You can't even get something out the vending machine. It's like $1.19 or $1.20, whatever it is now. So this is what's going on. And after this break, we'll tell you more about what's going on. Rob Dew will have a special report breaking down Bilderberg. He's going to be heading out, I believe, this weekend to go out to see the pageantry, I guess you would say, of the global elite meeting in secret. But you remember way back when they said it never happened, but now that it's happening, yeah, we get together and we, do all these things. We dress up in our robes and walk around, but you don't need to pay attention to that. Just look at this guy over here playing with the puppet. That's what happened last year. But you can find more reports right after this break. This is the INFOWARS Nightly News.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Vote for Jeb, or you're just fucking stupid.
Fool me, we can't get fooled again.
This is Rob Dew from INFOWARS.com with a special Bilderberg 2015 report. Now, next week, myself, Josh Owens, will be traveling to Austria. We'll be meeting Paul Joseph Watson there, and we will be in the Tyrol region, which is a state of Austria, sort of in the eastern mountain region. A lot of ski resorts there, a lot of tourism, but a lot of small towns. And the hotel, the Interhalpen Hotel, where the 2015 Bilderberg will be taking place, is very secluded. We're going to put a map version up, and you can see it's surrounded by trees and forests. There's a golf course nearby, but then nothing else for about 15 minutes. So it is definitely isolated, and there's a lot of security going on ramping up for this, and there's a lot being written about that, but not in the American press. It's mostly in the foreign press. I actually had to find these articles. They're from Austrian websites and German websites, even an RT international website, and I had to translate them using Google Chrome. So some of these quotes that I'll be reading from might not be in the most perfect English, but we'll just go ahead and run through those. But before I get to those articles, I just want to let you know we will be providing total coverage while we are at Bilderberg 2015. Both Josh and myself are pretty good editors and cameramen. Plus, we'll have Paul Joseph Watson there providing some of the best intel and using his contacts. So I think we're going to be giving you a really complete picture of what's going on. There's going to be several protests in the towns surrounding the Interhalpen Hotel, and we're going to be covering those as well. So be checking the Alex Jones channel on YouTube, be checking our Ustream channel, and we'll be putting all the links to that in this video so you can check that, bookmark it, and go back to it as Bilderberg takes place. We'll be landing on Monday, on the 7th of June. And what makes this Bilderberg so different from all the others is now we have this war in the Ukraine. So that is going to be on the main agenda of what is talked about there in Bilderberg. Of course, it'll all be in secret. Also about the killing of cash. That is now the new buzzword. We have to get rid of cash so we can let bankers basically not even print money anymore. They're just going to change digits in spreadsheets and thereby giving themselves millions and taking it away from us. And also the amount of foreign immigrants they're going to be bringing into Europe. That will be discussed. They're definitely doing it here on our southern border, and it's not just Mexican immigrants, it's also Central American, South American, and even African immigrants, as we've shown the videos here and showed you the news reports. So there's a lot to be talked about at this year's Bilderberg. So this is going to be a very important one. Also, it is right near the G7. In fact, the G7 is going to be just a few days before Bilderberg, and it's only going to be about 40 miles away in Elmau, which is, I believe, in Germany, the Bavarian area. And so they will be traveling from there to the Hotel Interhalpen for Bilderberg 2015. ExtremeNews.com reports that the Interhalpen Hotel is just a 26-kilometer or a 40-minute drive from the Elmau region where they will be meeting for the G7. Extreme News also reports that up to 2,000 Austrian police will be in the area surrounding the hotel. Also, up to 24 specialists from the anti-terrorism elite unit, which they call Cobra, which I think is really interesting. Cobra being the mortal enemy of the fictional G.I. Joe. And in addition, there's going to be